Chapter 18. It was a nasty cold Saturday, and my dad had left me in front of the TV watching a movie called The Breakfast Club. He had work to do on the ranch and said that it was too cold for me to be outside. For once I agreed with him. When I heard the front door shut and I knew I was alone, I turned the channel to watch Predator 2. I was eating the popcorn he'd popped for me and drinking a Mountain Dew. It was cozy warm with the fireplace going. I figured I was living the high life. Yellow was lying on the couch with me. A half a bag of popcorn later, there was a knock on the front door. I couldn't imagine who would be knocking. We didn't get many visitors. Bob always knocked once, then walked right in without invitation. The guys that worked for my dad popped right in too whenever they needed the bathroom or to get a drink of water. I didn't pay much attention to it anymore. None of them were working with him on this certain day. The knocking came again, so I grudgingly got up to see who dared disturb me. Yellow was at the door barking. I pushed Yellow aside and opened the door. I blinked in confusion at the teenager standing there as Yellow wagged his tail at him. The boy looked familiar with his knit cap and heavy coat. His face was red from the cold. He was rubbing his arms as if that would warm him up. "Hi, Troubled Angel. Remember me?" he asked. "Can I come in? You're letting out all the heat." The wind gusted and I shivered and stepped aside so he could come in. "Hi, Tractor Supply guy. Want to watch an alien movie with me?" I asked. I was trying to be friendly like my dad had pestered me to be. I could just hear him in my mind. "You have to be neighborly to people, pumpkin. You make friends that way." Yeah, my name is Mitch," he said. He shrugged off his coat and hung it on the coat rack by the door. Then he pulled off his cap and did the same. I remembered sitting on the tailgate of the truck with him and his hunting dog in the freezing cold in front of the Tractor Supply store. It reminded me that I hadn't burnt the town down yet. I'd figure I'd do that in the spring. He followed me into the living room and sat down at the end of the couch. He petted Yellow. "Popcorn?" I asked him. Sure," he said. I passed over the bag of popcorn, then I went to get him a Mountain Dew. I was proud that I was remembering to be neighborly. He was telling me that he enrolled in the Votech electrician program. "Shh, the movie's back on," I told him. We watched Danny Glover and the Aliens. On the commercial break, Mitch told me about school and that studying was a drag. "I know what you mean," I told him. "And wearing a rubber takes a lot of fun out of having sex." I looked at him. I was learning new stuff every day. "Really? I didn't know that," I replied. It made me remember that Peter had since showed me a glimpse of his wiener. I had really wanted a good look at it, but all I'd gotten was a 2 or 3 second glimpse before we heard someone walk around the corner. We'd nearly gotten caught. "Have you ever had sex?" Mitch asked. I scrunched my face up at him in distaste. "Nah, I'm a kid," I replied. He looked me over. "In a year or two, you'll be a really hot chick. All the guys will want to sleep with you." I gave him a weary look and shrugged my shoulders. People were always commenting to my dad and sometimes to me that I was cute or pretty. Yeah, whatever. And it wasn't the first time that a male had suggested sexual activity to me. "I don't know what the deal is about sex, why it's so great." He chuckled. "I could show you." I grimaced. "Nah, that's okay. Daddy wouldn't like that, and I'd hate to be a hoe." He cracked up and I smiled with him. The movie had come back on, but we weren't paying attention to it. "Hey, does your dad play electric guitar?" he asked suddenly as he spied my dad's electric guitar propped against the wall where the TV where I'd carelessly left it. "Yeah," I agreed. "That is so cool. You have a dad that plays electric guitar? You have a cool dad." Yeah, I guess," I replied. Was my dad cool? I never thought of him as cool before. "I can play too," I said as I remembered that fact. Maybe I was cool too. "You can? You can probably play Mary Had a Little Lamb or something like that," he snorted. I rolled my eyes at him. "Hell, I can play Freebird." Everybody loved Freebird, right? I knew I did. He laughed his ass off. "Oh yeah, right." That just got me irritated. I hit the mute button on the TV and then plugged the guitar into the amp. Rather than starting at the beginning of the song, I launched into the guitar solo, glad that my dad wasn't around to hear how good I was. I smiled as Mitch's mouth dropped to the floor. I smiled wider as he seemed to get more and more intrigued as the solo heated up. I walked over and stood in front of him, rocking to the beat as I effortlessly hit every note. I was smirking now, and he was looking up at me as if I was a gift from heaven. Oh yeah. I hit the floor on my knees with the peak of the solo, throwing my head back and then tossing my hair back and forth. He could hardly speak as I let the last note echo through the room. I stood up feeling so smug. It amused me to see the amazement and adoration on his face. If he was like most guys, then I figured I'd always have the guys by the balls when I played guitar. Oh fucking yeah. I might not know anything about sex, but I now knew the power of an electric guitar. I slowly stood up, beyond pleased with myself. Damn, I was hot. You are so fucking amazing on that guitar, and you're so cute, and so fucking loud. Oh my god, that was so fucking hot. Like having a rock video come alive, he finally gasped. Oh yeah, baby, get on your knees and I'll play something else, I remarked smugly. I laughed when he dropped to his knees. I'd never felt that kind of power before, and it had me higher than a kite. What do you want me to play? I asked him. Do you know Crazy Train by Ozzy Osbourne? My fingers started playing. Oh my god, he breathed as he purposely leaned over and fell softly on his side. Yellow was trying to lick his face. Aren't you going to play something else? He asked after the song was over and I was placing the guitar in its stand where it belonged. He sat back down on the couch. Nah, you were about comatose and I don't know CPR. I deadpanned. He cracked up. I smiled with him. You are the fucking coolest chick I have ever met. You're going to be a fucking heartbreaker when you're older with that beautiful dark hair and those amazing sapphire eyes. And you're funny. Why aren't you at least 15? Aw, Daddy wants me to be a kid. He says I'm too old for my own good. I sighed as I sat down on the couch. He turned towards me and I could definitely feel that his energy was all about me. I had his complete attention. There was also a new energy this time that I didn't quite understand. A few years later, I'd recognized it as being sexual, but at the time I didn't have a clue. His unexpected reaction made me wonder why it took so much effort to even get a little attention from people most days. And at that moment, I had someone, hell, a man's full attention. What was the trick that I was missing? He'd said I was beautiful, and I'd heard that many times before, but most people hated or avoided me. Yeah, this was confusing. The TV caught my eye, and I unmuted it because Danny Glover was in an apartment fighting aliens. I watched with interest. Hey, Mitch said as the show went to commercial, can I ask you a question? I turned my attention to him. He reached for the TV remote and muted the sound. I got offered a job at the Western Grill, but I really want to work at Sobeys. Do you think they'd hire me at the Grand Cafe? I have applications in at both places, but I'd hate to accept the job then and find out the Grand Cafe was going to hire me. Yeah, I think they'd hire you, but I think you'd like better working at the Western Grill. He wanted to know why, so I relayed what I was being told. He asked a few more questions and I answered them until the movie came back on. How do you know all these things? He asked. I felt uncomfortable now. Daddy had told me so many times not to tell people stuff that the voices had told me. I still did it on occasion because the information seemed like it would help people, and I sure wished that someone could tell me some things that would help my life. Daddy doesn't like me telling people stuff that comes to me like I just told you, so don't say anything, okay? I've got my ass whipped more than once for telling people stuff. He nodded. But how do you know? I shrugged my shoulders as if everybody's experience was like mine. The voices tell me stuff sometimes, and sometimes I just know. It rarely tells me anything about my life. Well, that's a rip. Yeah, tell me about it, I grumbled. What am I thinking? How the hell do I know? I'm not a fucking mind reader. That was the truth for the most part. At times I did know the thoughts of certain people. We laughed. I grabbed the remote back and took the TV off mute. We were watching an intense scene of Danny Glover on the roof wrestling with an alien when my dad said loudly, "Turn that off! You know I don't like you watching those alien movies." I jumped at his voice because I had been so sucked into the movie that I hadn't heard him come into the room. The sound on the TV was also pretty loud now that I thought about it. "But Dad, it's almost the end of the movie," I whined. He huffed and took the remote from me. The movie disappeared, and now a blank silent screen. He turned to Mitch. "And who are you?" he asked calmly, but underneath I knew he was angry. Mitch stood up and offered his hand. "I'm Mitch, remember? I met you at the Tractor Supply store about 2 weeks ago." Daddy shook his hand. "Yeah." "He was just visiting, Dad," I informed him. "Can he stay for supper? And can we watch the end of the movie? It's kind of a rip when you don't get to see the end." He looked at me for a moment and sighed. "This one time you can watch the end, but later you and I are going to have a serious conversation, you hear?" I nodded as I took the remote back and quickly turned the TV on. "Would you like to stay for supper?" he asked Mitch. Mitch and I watched the rest of the movie and we talked about this and that during the commercials. He had turned out to be likable and we chatted easily through supper. Daddy even thawed towards him and it was a really nice meal. "That's some good ham, Dad, and I even ate the carrots this time," I told him. "Yes, thank you, Mr. DeVito. That was really great of you to cook and invite me for dinner," Mitch agreed. After dinner, Daddy told Mitch that he wanted to show him his mounted buck in the den. He told me I was to stay and wash the dishes. I grumbled while they left the kitchen. Dad hadn't even killed that buck. Bob had, and he'd run out of places to mount all his trophies, so he pawned it off on us. Stupid buck. I rarely went into the den because that buck would watch you. When I got older and had my own place, I was going to keep the dead bodies outside. I reluctantly washed dishes and stacked them in the drainer. I didn't feel like talking about hunting, which I just knew the two of them were talking about, so I went back to the TV. Another movie was on that I knew my dad would not like me watching. I struggled between watching it and decided not to push my luck. I turned on Stargate and started watching it instead. They walked into the living room talking about guns. Daddy was telling Mitch of how he'd won several sharpshooting contests. I rolled my eyes. He liked to brag about that anytime we had male company. It was like a bonding ritual, all that bragging. They watched the rest of Stargate with me. As Mitch was leaving, Yellow escaped out the door with him. "Go get that full dog," Daddy told me. "Put on your coat and then practice your violin," he added as he handed it to me. I shrugged it on and went out the door. I saw that Yellow had needed to pee, so I turned my attention to Mitch as he was nearly to his truck. He opened the driver's door and then paused. 6 years is a long time to wait until you're 15, he told me. I walked over to him. "What?" I asked in confusion. What he said didn't make sense. "Want to sneak out sometime and meet me?" he replied in a much lower volume, even though there wasn't anyone close to hear us. I wanted to, but I imagined that whatever he was thinking would just get me in trouble. "I can't," I told him. He smiled and got into his truck. He waved goodbye as he pulled away. I watched wistfully as his taillights disappeared around the bend. I wondered if he had been asking if I wanted to have sex with him. Maybe he had just wanted a friend. Yellow ran up to me, so I patted his head and we went inside. "I had a long talk with Mitch," Daddy informed me. "Why? He didn't break anything while he was here." "No, I guess he didn't. I talked to him because he's 17. He shouldn't be visiting a 9-year-old girl." "Why? All we did is talk and watch a movie. You said to be neighborly and he knocked at the door." "Because he's too old to be a friend to you. We've been over this before with Ryan. You need friends that are girls your age. If you ever have friends your age that are boys, I need to be here with you. Kids my age don't like me, and I don't understand why you have to be here if I have boys over." Because boys get girls in trouble in more ways than one. All the boys I've known have seemed fine to me, I reasoned. Stupid boy was nice to me. He never got me in trouble. When you're older, you'll understand what I'm telling you. And believe me, if you and Ryan had been together for several months longer, I think he would have gotten you in real trouble. I laughed. I don't think so, Daddy. I would have gotten him in trouble. I'm a heathen. I was imagining us blowing up the town. The flames would be sky high. It would have been awesome. My dad shook his head at me. Yeah, like I said, there would have been trouble. I didn't realize that it meant that Mitch would never come back. Because, yeah, 6 years was a long time to wait to be 15 and have a friend.